This is CBC Here and Now.
We should be able to be part of any of those opportunities that are out there that the Prime Minister is talking about, and I look forward to making sure we are.
The incoming Premier speaks with the Prime Minister and highlights the Bay du Nord project as a top priority.
We are holding them all accountable, and we will be calling them out if we do not see progress.
The Registered Nurses Union will be watching to ensure the Progressive Conservatives follow through on their many healthcare promises.
Surprising and shocking, but I'm glad I'm done.
Well, it's Convocation Day at Memorial University, but it's not all good news. Enrollment is way down this semester. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. The Progressive Conservatives made big promises for better health care while they were on the campaign trail, and now that the party will form the next provincial government, nurses say they want the PCs to deliver. Heather Gillis reports.
We will be calling them out if we do not see progress.
Yvette Coffey, president of the Registered Nurses Union, says she's going to be watching the new PC majority government closely. Premier-designate Tony Wakeham's election platform pledged to make health care better. And he's made a lot of promises, like making nurse practitioner visits free, reopening some rural emergency rooms, and building a new urgent care centre in CBS.
I will put your health care first. I won't be spending $240 million on travel nurses. We're bringing registered nurses and nurse practitioners to more communities, investing in vital technology like MRIs. We have a plan in place to address shortages. We're going to train more doctors, train more nurses.
Coffey says her priority list for the new government includes a review of staffing levels, safety on the job, expanding a nurse travel locum program, and getting jobs for new grads. She also wants travel nurses reduced.
Are we going to eliminate it from the Labrador zone? Probably not. And, this Premier was CEO of Labrador when travel agency nurses were introduced in Labrador because we had no one else who could go to those rural, remote communities.
It's a long to-do list, and Coffey is looking for swift action.
We're ready to sit down, start those conversations, but more importantly, to get moving on all of those promises. It's going to take work, but I understand, and I heard him the night of the election say he's ready to roll up his sleeves, so are we. Let's get going. We have a lot to do. If we're going to improve the health outcomes of the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, we have to make these changes, and we have to do it quickly.
Coffey also says she'll be watching to see who will be the next Minister of Health. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the incoming Premier has had his first conversation with the Prime Minister, and Bay du Nord was a central focus point. Tony Wakeham is hot off the heels of his election victory and spoke with Mark Carney about how they'll work together on issues in the province. Wakeham says he's looking forward to taking office as soon as possible.
Well, I had a great discussion today with Prime Minister Carney. Talked about some of the issues that are important to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And I look forward to having more of those discussions. And we will go through the process now of, getting through the election period time of the 2 weeks or whatever is required for elections in L to ratify all of the votes and get sworn in as quickly as we can. Bay du Nord was one of the things we talked about, and we also talked about the potential for other projects. Like if we're talking about nation building and we're talking about increased defense spending, then here in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have the facilities, we have the resources. We should be able to be part of any of those opportunities that are out there that the Prime Minister is talking about, and I look forward to making sure we are.
And while Wakeham had his first call with the Prime Minister since his majority win this week, one political scientist talks about how Carney and the federal Liberals, their popularity may have contributed to the provincial election results and a loss for the Liberals.
On the Liberal side, I think that they were really held back by the fact that support nationally for the Liberals and Mark Carney has been going down. So there wasn't as much fear about Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre's potential connection to the PCs. And so it meant that people had less motivation to vote Liberal because they were afraid of the PCs. I think, Mr. Hogan just had run out of time in some ways. Leading a government that's been in power for 10 years, trying to go in and show that you are doing something new is really hard. And in this particular case, the message of change resonated with enough Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
Well, in other news, a U.S. investigative agency has declared that faulty engineering led to the implosion of the Titan submersible. The OceanGate submersible imploded in June of 2023 while attempting to dive to the wreckage of the Titanic, killing all 5 people on board. The National Transportation Safety Board in the U.S. has now released its final report on that matter. The report says the vessel contained multiple engineering anomalies and failed to meet strength and durability requirements. It also says OceanGate failed to adequately test the Titan. This follows a U.S. Coast Guard report that also said the disaster was preventable and described the vessel as critically flawed. Well, the fall semester at Memorial University is well underway, and now there's a clearer picture of how many new students have entered the classrooms. And the numbers are down. Here Now's Henrika Wilhelm reports.
For more than a month now, it's been back to the books for students at Memorial University. But among those roaming campus, there's fewer new faces than this time last year.
Not totally unexpected, but quite significant.
Across all campuses, overall enrollment has dropped almost 5%. It now sits at just over 17,000 students. But the university's provost says it's not a unique problem.
This is a national phenomenon. We're seeing decreases in enrollment across the country, so everybody is dealing with it.
A closer look at different groups paints an even more striking picture. Enrollment for undergraduate programs has declined by over 3%. For graduate students, the number dropped by about 3 times that number. And the number of international students went down a whopping 23.5%. Only students from this province saw a slight increase. Just under 2% more than last year are now enrolled. A decline of that scope does have an impact.
It amounts to about a $6 million loss of revenue.
A loss that will have to be made up for, with no specifics yet.
There may be some changes in programs. It's just part of the evolution of the university as we sort of manage this fiscal situation that we're in.
That situation is despite a hike in tuition rates, 4% every year since 2022, ending a 22-year freeze. But that move is not behind potential new students getting cold feet, says Lokash.
We don't actually see that significant of a decline immediately following that. And given the fact that enrollment is decreasing across the country, it's hard to pin it on our tuition situation.
And plans are in place, she says, to put wind in Munt's sails once again, like offering new programs in tech and AI or a new position for enrollment innovation.
He is going to be focusing on recruitment in maybe unexpected areas or new markets. That's all being explored. He's going to be working with our admissions team to modernize our admissions, make things easier for students to come into the university.
And Lokash says she is optimistic about the university's future and confident that the trend will be turned around within the next couple of years. Henrika Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, still with education, hundreds of Memorial University students are convocating in St. John's today. And during today's ceremony, students shared the spotlight with the university's new president. As CBC's Zach Gowdy reports, Janet Morrison is taking over at a time when the university is facing some major challenges.
You just made the big walk across the stage. How do you feel?
Amazing. It was a lot of, let's just say, self-doubt and long nights and, just, believing in yourself, most importantly.
It's a big day at Memorial University. For nearly 1,000 students, this is the day they have been working for, the day they have been waiting for, their Convocation Day. But this is also the day Memorial welcomes its new president, Dr. Janet Morrison. Dr. Morrison has been in the role since April, but she was officially installed and welcomed at this morning's convocation ceremony. In her address to graduates, she began by reassuring them that this day really is all about them, that each person graduating today is joining a proud tradition. More than 156,000 people have received degrees from Memorial University, and today the people on this stage will be among them. But she also said the degree they are earning today goes far beyond its market value, that in a fast-changing world, we need universities and university graduates more than ever.
In this moment of rapid change, from AI to shifting economies to evolving social and cultural landscapes, we need your curiosity, we need your compassion, and we need your courage to help guide the way forward. In a time when many institutions are questioned, universities remain an infrastructure of hope.
Dr. Morrison takes over at a time of great challenges for Memorial University. There have been cuts to funding, enrollment numbers are down because of a significant drop-off in international students, and the number of high school students from Newfoundland and Labrador is in long-term decline. Nevertheless, Dr. Morrison said she can't wait to get started and pledged that pride in Memorial University will be the driving force behind everything she does in this role. Zach Gowdy, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a traffic stop in Bay Bulls early this morning led to 3 arrests and the seizure of drugs and weapons. RCMP stopped what they describe as a suspicious vehicle around 3:30 a.m. Officers say they found weapons, open alcohol, and contraband cigarettes, as well as pills and cocaine. A 35-year-old woman is charged with possession for the purpose of trafficking, as well as several weapons-related charges. As well, 2 men face charges of failure to comply with release orders. RCMP say more charges are anticipated. And in other news, the Canadian Coast Guard was in Labrador recently, providing local first responders with some search and rescue training on the water. The CBC's Andrea McGuire went on board a boat in Northwest River for an inside look.
All hands are on deck down at the dock. In Northwest River, the Canadian Coast Guard is in town for a series of training exercises. And today, 6 boats full of first responders are heading out to take part. Shajit Search and Rescue, DFO, Innu Nation, Parks Canada, and the Coast Guard Auxiliary are all here, along with the Happy Valley Goose Bay Ground Search and Rescue.
We just started tasking the assets that are on water right now. So, as I mentioned, the scenario is we have a group of kayakers that have left Northwest River, and they're out for a leisure kayak, and they're reported overdue.
For today's exercise, there are 6 groups of stranded kayakers to rescue, all over Lake Melville. The Coast Guard gives each vessel a different set of coordinates. But they're not searching for actual stranded kayakers today.
These mannequins are made for training. They're black in color, these ones. Very, very, very hard to identify on the surface of the water.
Cole says they do this because many recreational boaters wear dark clothing, which can make them extremely difficult to rescue. She highly recommends wearing a life jacket or personal flotation device, and says wearing bright colors can make a world of difference.
High-vis, red, orange, that kind of colors can certainly make the search a whole lot easier.
Once all the mannequins are found, the search and rescue groups head back to shore. For some, this was their first time training with the Coast Guard.
It was good. It was fun, actually. It was, I would consider it an eye-opening experience.
How different did that feel from an actual search and rescue mission?
No adrenaline. When you're actually searching for someone, your adrenaline is through the roof. And you're always worried that you might miss something. In a situation like this, it's relaxing, but it's training and it's more fun. There's no pressure. So, and practice makes perfect.
After cluing up their training in Northwest River, the Canadian Coast Guard set out to do more training in Labrador, training first responders in Cartwright and Marys Harbour. Andrea McGuire, CBC News, Happy Valley Goose Bay.
Back on the island, the public is being invited to the former Costco building in St. John's to get a first look at the city's new health hub. The building on Stavanger Drive has been transformed into an ambulatory clinic, providing services that don't require admission to a hospital. That includes general surgery, x-rays, orthopedics, eye clinics, and more. Public tours of the new health hub are being offered this Sunday from 11 a.m. until 3 p.m.
He gets another breaking ball, hits it to center. This one's going a long way. Gone!
The CBC's Madison Taylor stopped by a baseball training facility in Paradise to talk about Blue Jays fever. We'll have that story coming up. Tonight marks Game 4 for the Toronto Blue Jays as they take on the Seattle Mariners in the American League Championship Series. There are plenty of Jays fans across the province, and their big league success makes a difference to the next generation of young players. The CBC's Madison Taylor has that story.
Blue Jays fans across the country are excited to see if they'll make it to the World Series. Last night's Game 3 win against the Seattle Mariners has folks hoping for more success, and fans here in this province are no exception, even if game times are making for late nights here on the East Coast. For local fans like Noah Anderson, this season and playoff run has been a roller coaster ride. Anderson is a lifelong Jays fan, growing up in the excitement following their back-to-back World Series wins in 1992 and 93.
2-2. Well hit down the left field line. Way back and
I was born in 1991, so the Jays winning the World Series was kind of my childhood. So that was kind of my introduction to baseball and why I kind of grew to love it.
And more than 3 decades after those World Series wins, this year more fans are finding a reason to root for Canada's only team in the MLB. As a longtime coach and co-founder of Premier Sport Academy in Paradise, for Anderson, developing young talent is at the heart of what they do here. Seeing the Jays succeed can be inspiring for new players.
They're coming in and talking about games. They're emulating their favorite players when they're in the batting cage. They want to pitch like their favorite player. So you can feel the excitement, and you can see the Jays jerseys all around during practices.
And it may even inspire some to pick up a baseball for the first time.
Daddy, get rid of that.
Though I started off shaky, like the Jays this season, things got better with a little time and practice. Tonight's game will have people like Anderson on the edge of their seats. And like any true fan, he believes they have the ingredients to take it all the way to another world title.
They've got kind of the structure, and they've got the backing of a whole country. When you have the backing of a whole country supporting you, I think that adds an element to excite the guys that are on the field to kind of push for that extra little bit, and hopefully they can come out with the best outcome.
But no matter the result tonight, the Jays' string of success makes a difference for young players.
The impact of the Jays on youth baseball is huge across this country. I think that it allows registration for minor associations to increase year over year with their success. So hopefully their success this year leads to more kids getting introduced to the game and more kids wanting to play a game that we all love.
Blue Jays fans here in Newfoundland and Labrador will have to stay up late to catch all the action. But only time will tell to see if the Jays will fly through to the World Series. Madison Taylor, CBC News, Paradise.
Well, mail delivery is on the move again, despite no new deal between Canada Post and postal workers. Over the weekend, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers switched from a nationwide strike to a rotating strike. But Canada Post and employees remain at odds. Arlene Critch is the vice president of Cup W Local 126. She spoke with the St. John's Morning Show about where negotiations stand and how workers are feeling.
People are anxious. You know, it's been 2 years. That's a long time with uncertainty. People are frustrated that we feel unheard. The government is not really looking at our side and only seems to be siding with management. We feel that it's a deliberate attempt to frustrate our workers and to break our workers. You know, we feel that we're fighting against an anti-Labour government right now. And people are tired. They're tired of fighting. And we feel like we are being blamed for the mismanagement of Canada Post, and it's unfair.
So how do you expect the coming weeks to play out, Arlene? Is this rotating strike going to continue?
It will definitely continue until, we get back to the bargaining table. We just want to have a negotiated, ratifiable agreement to bring back to our members to vote on. And I guess the main thing is that we have to remain hopeful.
Well, some sad news to tell you about now from the West Coast. A business leader and former mayor of Stephenville has died. Tom O'Brien was mayor of Stephenville from 2001 to 2017. After some time away from the town hall, he was re-elected as a councillor in March of 2024. Now, O'Brien was re-elected to another term on council less than 2 weeks ago, receiving more votes than the town's new mayor, Bob Burns. According to a spokesperson from the town, Tom O'Brien died yesterday on his 68th birthday. Time for a look at the weather, and Jeremy is filling in for Ashley tonight. And we're back here in the Here and Now studio after the election, and a few little changes around here, but so nice to have you with us tonight, Jeremy.
And always a pleasure to be sharing the stage here, the set here with you at the Here and Now headquarters. Anyways, let's take a quick look at the weather. I took some notes because this is going to be an extensive weather forecast, so you're going to want to read my notes. So we're going to have some RDF, followed by more RDF, and more RDF. And so basically, if you looked at your window right now, what it looks like now is probably what it's going to look like for the next couple of days. Let's take a quick look here now. This is our future tracker of what we're going to see. There is going to be some rain falling, but there's going to be no real accumulation. The only thing that we're going to see tonight into tomorrow will be sort of in the Cartwright area and down on the Avalon Peninsula. You might see about 2, maybe 4 millimeters up in the Labrador side of things. But as you can see, there's not really much. It's basically just gray. Everything is going to be gray. It's sort of a theme as we go through the weather here today. So as we move on take a quick look as we get through Future Tracker, not much is going to change. So we'll just skip over this altogether. I'm real handy with this. We're on a different screen and I'm still just as bad. But as you can see here are the temperatures that we're looking at. But if you notice one thing, look at all rain clouds. Rain clouds, rain clouds. So basically the entire province is going to look the same. It's going to be cloudy. It's going to be rainy. I have the rain. It looks like a lot of rain, but that's basically just drizzle. But that's just the way the icon works. The only little bit of difference, if you look up at it, it's going to be here with our friends in Labrador West. That's Labrador City and Wabash area. Those showers overnight there could turn to flurries, and that will continue into tomorrow as well. But I know the fine folks there, especially Jerry at Menahek Nordic Ski Club, he's dying for a bit of snow so they can get out there on the country trail. So I know that they won't be too upset by seeing that. But as you can see, the rest of the province, and the same thing, it's going to be the same thing across the island tomorrow and into Saturday and into Sunday. So it's going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but I'm not. So as you can see, there will be sunny breaks, but that's not expected to stick around. What is expected to stick around? The gray clouds everywhere you look. So and as we move across the island, similar story. It's going to be a little bit warmer down in Harbour Breton, down in that part of the province, but it's still going to be rainy, drizzly, and foggy. When you move to the west coast, there will be sun patches there coming now from the southwest coast up into Gros Morne. But as they say, west coast is the best coast. But they'll see sun, but they'll also see showers as well. And that trend is going to continue on as we move our way up into the northern peninsula, then across the Strait of Belle Isle there. Cartwright, as I said, you may see a bit of accumulation here overnight into tomorrow as well. This is the highest wind we're going to see in the entire province, 50 kilometers an hour. So while it may be rainy and it may be drizzly, it is going to be not very cold and not very windy. As you can see there, that flurry icon there in Labrador City as well. But basically, it's just par for the course for the rest of the province. Now, Friday afternoon, as you can see, I don't need to read out those numbers to you because I'm sure that you can read them just as good as I can. But just look, everybody gets rain, drizzle, and fog. But that's to be expected this time of year, and we're used to dealing with, so it's all good. And we're just going to move ahead one more, and I think that that's basically all we got. And Friday evening, as you can see, there is not one part of the province that will be without clouds. So you can get expected. This is going to last into Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and probably into Monday as well. But we're going to talk more about that later on in the show with the long-range forecast, where we can talk about what we're going to expect in the weekend and into next week.
Thank you, Jeremy. Well, as the dust settles on the political tectonic shift from this week's provincial election, there are many questions about what happened and what happens next. Alex Marland is a political science professor at Acadia University who also spent years at Memorial University in St. John's. I spoke with him earlier today.
And whenever there's a change of government, there's a lot of excitement for the people who are on the winning side, and a lot of frustration and disappointment for those who are on the losing side. For somebody like me, I tend to look at some other things. So I'm really fascinated by the fact that the two independents got reelected again. This just doesn't happen in Canadian politics. And it's amazing to me that there's something very special going on in Eddie Joyce and Paul Lane to manage to keep getting reelected as independents. The reality is that there's a lot of things that you can reflect on in terms of both the Liberals and their performance and the Conservatives and their performance. But let's not make any mistake here. In some ways, the story here is Newfoundland and Labrador is pretty divided because, sure, the seats went towards the Conservatives, but if you look at how the votes went, it really tells you that there's not a lot of agreement in the entirety of the province about the political direction and where things should go.
And definitely that urban and rural divide became even more distinct in this election.
That has been a constant theme, and we've seen that go on for quite a while. It's been a pattern that's taken a little while to take hold in Newfoundland and Labrador in terms of the way the votes have gone. So, obviously historically it was always Tories very strong out in town and Liberals outside in the rural areas, but that story has changed quite a bit now. And what we see is Tories tending to do a lot better in rural areas. And this is something that we've seen really right across the country. In fact, you could look at the United States, you could look at the United Kingdom, and you can see this pattern playing out, that progressive parties are very much urban concentrated, and parties that are more conservative and traditional values are much more concentrated in rural areas.
Is there anything that the PCs did really right in this election? I know Tony Wakeham was talking about his campaign and the skillful campaigners that he had there. And when you look at the Liberals, where did things go so terribly wrong for them?
Well, I think we have to keep in mind in terms of votes, it's one thing, but in terms of seats, that yes, of course, it went in another direction. The first thing that comes to mind for me with the PCs is it was really kind of slow but steady. And the big thing that they avoided was catastrophe in terms of candidates who would create what we sometimes call bozo eruptions. Tony Wakeham managed to avoid that, so hats off to the PCs for scrutinizing their candidates. And then that allowed him to just keep focusing on certain messaging. Obviously, the idea of putting the Quebec MOU to more scrutiny, maybe having a referendum on it, was probably a winning message in that sense. But talking about healthcare and cost of living, those are things that are going to help. I think, Mr. Hogan just had run out of time in some ways. Leading a government that's been in power for 10 years, trying to go in and show that you are doing something new is really hard. And in this particular case, the message of change resonated with enough Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
What do you think about this idea of holding a referendum on the MOU?
I don't even know if it's going to get there. And that's because in Quebec, you've got the governing party, the CAQ, that has signed this deal, really down in the polls. There's some polls suggesting they're not going to win a single seat in the next Quebec election next year. It's really hard to imagine that the ability of the Quebec government to move this forward in a timely manner, in conjunction with Newfoundland and Labrador, potentially subjecting it to a referendum campaign. All of these things just make it very hard to imagine it. A referendum campaign is a very big undertaking, and that's one of the reasons why I would predict that it's unlikely to move forward as long as we're not clear about what's going on in Quebec politics.
Another question about whether or not John Hogan will take on the job of opposition leader or if he's going to step away. And I'm curious what you think about that. And if he does decide to step away and not become opposition leader, who would be waiting in the wings to take over that job, and how would that process unfold?
So one of the worst things that happens when you're head of government and you lose power is if you win your own seat. And so that's obviously what happened in this particular case, because it's a lot easier to just walk away. It's very rare that somebody who's head of government wants to stick around and wants to be leader of the opposition, particularly nowadays, because it's not a fun job, and it's certainly not fun if you're used to being in power. And then all that happens is, you can predict that the now PC governing party will simply the whole time blame the Liberals for the mess that the government is in. So it's not really a job that I think that John Hogan has much interest in. What happens in other cases is often they stick around and they do it for a short period of time, and then they announce that they're resigning. So it could be because of a desire to show constituents that they wanted to respect the fact that they were elected. It could be that they will face a lot of backlash if they step down right away. But I would predict that John Hogan will step down at some point, and there will be a by-election. It doesn't mean it will for sure, but that's what the pattern normally is. In terms of who's waiting in the wings, the kinds of people that will come forward, it will really depend on where the Liberals are in public opinion polls at that particular time. If the PCs are very unpopular, then more people will see the Liberals as a brass ring that they want in order to have a chance at becoming premier. But if it looks like the Liberals are going to be sitting in opposition for a while, the quality of candidate is going to be much lower, because not a lot of people want to be leader of the opposition. Many more want a chance at becoming premier.
It is time for the weather. Carl is out and about.
Yes, there are a lot of folks here in the Avalon Mall cinemas playing chess.
How do you do, sir?
Well, back to the provincial election. The future of the Churchill Falls MOU remains one of the big questions coming out of the Progressive Conservatives election win this week. Tony Wakeham has promised a referendum on the deal and has suggested a better agreement is possible. But with an impending election in Quebec, the incoming premier might not have enough time to renegotiate. Host of Power and Politics, David Cochrane, asked Wakeham how quickly he can get it all done.
This cannot simply be about the next 4 years. We all know, and we've lived through a 50-plus year agreement in the past, and we've been talking about trying to get out of that forever. But this is about the future generations of people. And there have been so many people in our province of Newfoundland and Labrador, as you'd be familiar with, who have very significant concerns about the existing MOU. But I have said from day one, let's turn around, take it out of the political arena. Let's turn around and have an independent review done outside of the politicians and make sure that in actual fact that Newfoundland and Labrador is the principal beneficiary of that agreement. That's what I've been calling for, and that's what I've been intend to do.
Right, but you say you want to put it out, take it out of the political arena, but then you say you wouldn't advance with it unless you have a referendum with a majority support in the province. You call it a binding referendum. That is very political, right? That's something as complicated and complex as almost century-long hydro agreements. I mean, is a referendum the best way to make the final choice on something that has to deal with decades of energy pricing?
I think, though, that we have an ability, we need to make sure that we break it down for people. And that's the first thing, is to have it looked at, as I said, with an independent analysis done. And then to bring it forward to the people. After we've renegotiated, if that's what's necessary, we'll get recommendations coming out of that independent review. And those recommendations will, as I have said, come from an independent analysis of that. So that'll be the first step. Then we have to make sure that we present it in a way so people understand it. For too many now, even at the doors as we traveled throughout this campaign, people didn't understand it. They didn't have any idea whether or not this was a good deal or a bad deal. They were asking for that detail, and they weren't getting it. So now we're going to make sure they get it, and we're going to do this review and have it done.
But what if the review comes back and says, Premier Wakeham, this is a good deal. This is the best you're going to get, and this is the right thing to do. Do you still go ahead with a referendum and risk it if the independent experts conclude it's the right thing for Newfoundland and Labrador?
And what we're talking about here is making sure that Newfoundland and Labrador are the principal beneficiaries of our resources. I can't speculate on what an independent review may or may not say, but all I know is we need to do it. You and I both know that we went through a review during Muskrat Falls. Mm-hmm. One of the principal the recommendations coming out of that was that before we entered into any more of these mega projects, that we have it done an independent review carried out to make sure we get it right. And that's exactly, we should be following the recommendations. You know, we've learned we should follow that, and that's what I intend to do.
So what's the timeline here, Mr. Wakeham? Because you know, after your big win, you're going to be busy. You got to go through a transition. You got to swear in a cabinet. You know, you have to do all the things that a new government has to do. But then to set up an independent review committee and have them go through a process, there is this sort of deadline to get final commercial agreements done by April of next year. But then there's also the political calendar in Quebec, right, where Premier Legault is facing an election next year, and his government does not look like it is in good shape. So how quickly do you think this can get done, and can you do it before maybe the clock runs out on the partner on the other side of the border?
David, I'm not interested in any artificial proposals put forward by Quebec that talk about deadlines or timelines. This is too important. Mm-hmm. What we need to be focused on is getting the best deal we can. You know, we've waited a long time for this to come up, this deal to come up. We have an opportunity. We have the power. Quebec has the needs. We want to make a deal. We want to develop Gull Island. We want to develop Churchill Falls. We want to electrify Labrador. But I don't want to simply turn around and continue simply to look at our hydroelectricity as a product to be sold. I want to look at it as a product to be developed. So how do we use our electricity to develop industries in our own province? That's got to be part of the discussion here.
No, and look, I get you. You know, I grew up there. I know the damage the original deal has done to the psyche of the province, and nobody wants another repeat of that. But you do have a partner in Premier Legault right now. But the public opinion polls, and I know in your speech you said you were counted out and you had your comeback, so I know how you may feel about opinion polls right now. But it would suggest in Quebec that the PQ, the Parti Québécois, the Separatist Party, which has called this deal an insult to Quebec, and they publish maps when they're in government that shows Labrador as part of Quebec. If the clock goes past the lifespan of the Legault government potentially and goes into that election cycle in Quebec, you could lose the opportunity, right? So are you looking to have this all ready to go, say, by the spring? Would it be done in 6 months? Would it be done in under 12 months? Do you have a sense of the time frame you want to navigate on this one?
We will take as much time as is necessary to make sure that we protect the interests of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and get the best deal possible for Newfoundland and Labrador. And that's what I'm focused on. And we have the power. Quebec has the need. And when you look at Quebec's own details about what it would cost them to develop their own power, they have an opportunity to be part here. We'd love to have them along with us, but we're not going to be dictated to, and we're not going to be held to some artificial deadline, as I have said. Mm-hmm. What we want, we have the power. Quebec has the need. Let's negotiate.
Well, as we heard earlier, some mail started moving across the country this week after Canada Post workers moved from a nationwide strike to a rotating job action. But the partial return to work came too late for many regions where elections are happening, both in this province and across the country. As Marina von Stackelberg reports, that's prompting calls for change.
Canada Post was supposed to mail all these registration cards. But with municipal elections across Quebec just weeks away, officials like those in the town of Chelsea scrambled to get the information out in other ways.
We decided to deliver the card by a courier. The courier will ensure that everyone will receive a card and we will have a proof of that.
The strike was so disruptive, the City of Montreal is now calling for all election materials to be deemed essential mail, so voter information and mail-in ballots aren't held hostage in any future Canada Post strikes.
The city of Gatineau paid a bailiff to deliver its registration cards. So instead of serving legal notices, they served election information. In most parts of Canada, you can just register to vote on election day. Not in Quebec. Here, voters have to make sure they are correctly on the list this week to make sure they can cast their ballot next month.
We're really focused on getting all the polling places organized now.
People across Yukon also go to the polls in November. So the territory has a contingency plan. Mail-in ballots have been delivered with a patchwork of services by road and air. Elections Yukon also loosened the rules for in-person voting. People can now show up at any polling station in their electoral district.
We have kind of a philosophy and approach here that everything is figure-outable. And obviously we want to make sure that we keep the integrity, the access, the services to the electors.
Alberta's municipal elections are next week. Like many other jurisdictions across Canada, that province has made voter information accessible online. So while voter registration cards aren't essential to cast a ballot, they do play a vital role.
The best way after personal contact to get somebody to be mobilized to go to the polls is through this sort of direct mailing information.
Those cards are particularly important in provincial, territorial, and municipal elections, where the rules can all be different and voter turnout already tends to be low. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Gatineau, Quebec.
Staying in Quebec, Hockey Quebec has launched a series of ads to discourage bad behavior. It's aimed at stopping parents from behaving poorly in the stands at their children's games. Sarah Levitt has the story from Montreal.
There are too many examples of it. Hockey parents taking things too far. Brawls like this one at a game for 7- and 8-year-olds in Hamilton. Or this one at a minor league tournament in Gatineau, Quebec, where a fight in the stands led to fighting on the ice, too. Now, Hockey Quebec is saying enough is enough through a series of commercials.
Let's go away! Hey, butts in! Butts in! Whoa.
Asking parents if they recognize themselves in the ads, aggressive and angry at the kids, coaches, and referees, no matter how young.
We're passionate about hockey. So we're using our platform to say, listen, take a little pause, and you know what? It's just a game.
In most provinces, hockey associations have made it mandatory for at least one parent from each household to take an online course called the Respect in Sport Parent Program. Created in part by former NHLer Sheldon Kennedy, it's meant to teach parents the impact of their behavior. Hockey Quebec, though, hasn't made the course compulsory, saying it has no way to police parents. Instead, these latest ads are meant to shock them into change.
Hey, regarde-moi.
Including how they talk to their own kids. At this youth hockey practice in Montreal, coach Darren Bearsy tries to teach his players respect is a necessity on and off the ice.
So we have a parent's code of conduct, we have a coach's code of conduct, we have a player's code of conduct, and we expect everybody on our team to follow that.
While he says the majority of parents are there to support their kids, the few bad apples can quickly ruin the fun for everyone. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Time for a look at the long-range forecast, Jeremy, and you're going to look ahead to the weekend, which I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how things are shaping up.
Well, if you saw the first weather forecast, I think you know.
More of the same.
More of the same all weekend, all the rest of the week and into next week. We'll just take a quick look here at this is what we're looking at for tomorrow afternoon. Look at all those rain clouds hovering around the island, and guess what, Labrador? A lot of the same too, except maybe Labrador West, you could see some flurries as well. But now as we look sort of at the future tracker to see what's the weekend will bring, oh, look at that, rain, drizzle, and fog. Looks like it's going to be a fun weekend, but I'm sure people in this province are used to that, so nobody seems to care much about it as we watch this play out. So as we move into the weekend, you'll sort of see the sun is going to start to come out in parts of Labrador there in Labrador City, and then along the west coast from the southwest coast up into the Corner Brook area, and then up into the Northern Peninsula as well. But it's going to be single digits, so it is. But it is that time of year, so I guess it is to be expected. Now, we're going to take a quick look at our 5-day forecast. Now, I teased this off the top with rain, drizzle, and fog, more rain, drizzle, and fog, and yes, more rain, drizzle, and fog. So let's just take a look at the 5-day forecast, because they're all going to look like this. A lot of clouds, as you can see. Look at St. John's and East Newfoundland. Look at what you have to look forward to. Rain, drizzle, and fog. Rain, drizzle, and fog, those temperatures. Now, we are going to hover above zero, which is a good thing. But as you move into central, it looks like a little bit, you're like, Jeremy, I see a little bit of sun. You may see it there, but that's just the way that the icons work in the weather system that we operate out of. So there's going to be cloud cover, but it's mainly cloudy, Maybe on Monday. I spoke to my friend Melissa at Environment Canada today out of the Gander Weather Office, and she was saying, as far as she can see, maybe Monday and Tuesday will start to take a turn. But right now, as you can see, the weekend is going to be pretty cloud covered. It's going to be a little bit of showers there in central. Western Newfoundland, you're probably going to do the best of it over the weekend, so maybe get out and enjoy those beautiful fall colors that we all see in and around Corner Brook and the Humber Valley as well. And as we move into Labrador, you're still going to look at those flurries there into the west, a little bit of sun into Saturday, and then they're going to get the rain, drizzle, and fog. Eastern Labrador is same sort of thing, as you can see. Now, hopefully next week we'll get out of it, but, we got to learn to embrace fall and love the weather that we have. And this is a beautiful, I know Ashley had a similar picture up last night or the night before, but this is what we're seeing this time of year. The beautiful blue skies, the beautiful color of the trees along the water. Everybody loves this. And this was a picture that was sent in by Carmen Pritchett that she took on Thanksgiving weekend on Gambo Pond. Just take a look at that. Thanks so much for the picture. And if you have one, you can send it in to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
That is gorgeous. Thank you so much, Carmen, for sending that in. A beautiful blue sky there that we will not be seeing for a while, at least here in the East, it seems. So that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us, and I hope you can join us again tomorrow. Good night.